Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Investor Corner. I know it's been a couple weeks since I put one of these together. I've had some stuff going on with my new rental property that I've been working through and a bunch of other things just going on, so I have not gotten around to making a video in a couple weeks. So excited to dive into it this week. I'm talking about something really exciting. I'm going to talk through LLCs a little bit and how to kind of form some of those partnerships that I've talked about a little bit in the past. Talk through some of the mechanics of how that can work and some of the different pieces that go into it. So hopefully this one is helpful for you, so stick around. So when you're looking at forming a partnership, there's a couple different ways you can go about it. So if you are just a solo person that owns an investment property, you don't necessarily need to put that in an LLC. An LLC is meant to protect you a little bit from liability, and it's meant to be a tax sheltering tool. But when you're just a solo owner of a property, there's not really a ton of benefit in putting every individual property in its own LLC. That is a viable option. The attorneys I've talked to in the past have basically said that that isn't really going to protect you from lawsuit. So instead what they recommend is getting like a $2 million umbrella policy. So that's going to cover all of your properties and all of the liability that can come from that. If you happen to have someone fall out a window and they decide to sue you, your umbrella policy would cover that in addition to your homeowner's insurance. So that is the most basic way that I see most people do this is they just have a property under their name, they have an umbrella policy to kind of cover them for liability, and then they just file it within their own taxes as part of their income and expenses. So totally viable way to do that. When you're working with multiple partners on projects, that's not really the best way to go. Really what you want is you want some sort of legitimate LLC written up. So limited liability corporation, probably many of you business owners have that for your own businesses. But what that would look like is you and 3 other people own 123 Main Street. The operating agreement then is going to outline all of the terms that you're working with as far as money that's going into it, how to separate, how to sell, when to sell, how to have meetings, all of those different pieces. So something you get drafted up by an attorney. Some of the things that go into that that are really important is the initial ownership of the entity. So you're buying 123 Main Street. Are all 4 people coming in at 25%? And if so, what is that dollar amount? Just so you have some sort of record on file within your operating agreement. Is one person going to be at 50% and everyone else is going to split it 3 ways? How exactly is that going to be broken up? So then from that, let's say it's 25% 4 ways. That's kind of the simplest way to do it. You would have each person have a 25% vote in decisions for the property. So in that, you're going to have timelines for, okay, the goal of 123 Main Street is we want to own it for around 5 years. In that 5-year span, we're hoping to make some cash flow every month, but really the goal is to turn around and resell the property in 5 years and then make some money on the equity growth. Or conversely, our goal is to cash flow for 5 years. We're not really concerned with what the sell-off's going to be in the end, but our goal is we want to take draws every quarter, every month from the income that's coming in order to have a property that's cash flowing. So there's different mentalities in that, but really just getting it outlined at the beginning of we own 123 Main Street. We care a little bit about cash flow, but really want to be able to sell a valuable asset in 5 years. Great. If that's the case, you're going to take maybe quarterly, maybe semi-annual draws from a shared account. So income is going to go into a shared account under the name of the LLC, and then every quarter you would split the profits 4 ways if that was how it was divided up. If you had someone that had a little bit higher ownership share, maybe you have a 50% and then 3 at, what would that be, 15, 17% each. You could have that person getting 50% and then the other 3 people getting 17%. So there's no set way you have to do it. There's just different ways that you're going to set it up. So then everyone has equal share and ownership in it based on the amount of equity they put in or the value that they're adding to the property. So if you have, let's say you and 3 other people partner with someone who wants to start a restaurant. So maybe the restaurateur isn't coming in with capital, maybe they're coming in with their expertise. So the 3 people that are buying the building with their funds, maybe they're going to figure out some sort of partnership with that restaurateur, even though they're not bringing funds to the table. Or it could just be these people are buying an investment property that this restaurateur is going to rent from it. So you can do it any way you want, but the LLC is going to protect you and your interests so that in the event of any sort of liability or issues that may come up, the parties are all going to be protected. So some of the other things that are not super commonly thought of that an LLC can kind of take care of, it can take care of rights of survivorship issues. So for example, Washington is a common property state. So I own 2 properties with another business partner. If I were to pass away, my wife would take my ownership, my 50% ownership of those 2 properties. In reality, my wife does not want to run properties. That's not her thing. She likes the income, obviously, but doesn't really care to run that. So one of the things that we're in the process of setting up is we're going to get life insurance policies for both myself and my partner in the amount of dollars for the equity that is owned. So if I have a $150,000 share in a property, we'll get a life insurance policy for each of us to cover that. And then in the event of one of us passing away, that life insurance money would actually just go to pay off the spouse, and then the other partner would take full ownership of the property. So that way, if something happened, my partner could take the property, my wife would get a payout of the equity and the money that's been earned. There can also be some sort of couple-year buy down or things like that. So those are all things that would be outlined in an LLC. Some of the other things are, what if a partnership breaks up? So me and my business partner get in a fight. We say, cool, we don't want to do this anymore. There's actually buyout options of how to do that. So one of the more common ways is I would approach my partner and say, hey, I want to give you $450,000 for your half of this property. He can either say yes or no. If he says yes, then I can buy it. If he says no, he would have the right to flip that deal around and buy me out for the same thing I offered him. So if I offered him $450,000, he could actually turn around and pay me $450,000 for my half of the ownership. So that just works to kind of keep everything fair. It means that I'm not going to lowball him, and conversely, he's not going to lowball me if there was some sort of disagreement and we decided to separate our business relationship. So there's a lot of things that can be outlined in an LLC. It also is helpful in being its own vehicle for taxes. So when you have it in an LLC, you can write off different things. You can write off all the different expenses and management fees and all that stuff to kind of bring your bottom line down. And of course, you're going to be able to depreciate the property itself. So lots and lots of benefits in forming an LLC. And it's something that protects everyone because you kind of set the rules of engagement up front. Once the rules are set, you just follow them. So you need an annual board meeting with minutes and things like that just for record keeping to be a real LLC. And then you can't commingle money. So money would go into an account. If there's quarterly owner draws, the owners would take a draw or distribution every quarter from that. But then you're not spending personal money and getting reimbursed and doing all of that kind of just questionable accounting that probably a lot of business owners fall into. It is important to keep it very separate, so then you have a really clear books at the end of the year, which is going to keep that LLC formed and safe. So then if, again, there's some sort of liability claim, it would be covered underneath that LLC. So you still have insurance and things like that that would help protect you from that, but that's one of the vehicles that could be helpful. So then the other piece of that is some of those rules of engagement could be cool. After 5 years, our plan is to sell it, so we're going to evaluate it on year 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and sell it somewhere in that range. So then everyone starts off knowing. You'd get to year 3, you'd vote on it, say no. 4, you get a 50-50 vote. You maybe have a tiebreaker person who maybe has some sort of higher ownership for some reason. They would vote yes or no, vote no again. Next year, year 5, yes, you go 100% unanimous. Or maybe one party doesn't want to sell, but you still have 3 of the 4 that do. At that point, again, you'd kind of decide that you would sell because the majority of the owners have said that that is what they want to do. So setting up the rules of engagement at the beginning just helps create a healthy boundary and healthy relationships from start to finish. An LLC is not terribly difficult to set up. It's something an attorney can do, and they'll outline whatever terms you want. So that would be something that is just really important as you're looking at investing and figuring out how to do that potentially with other people. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So having a really good LLC set up with that formational documents is just going to help the whole thing run a lot smoother. So anyway, if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to chat with you or get you connected to an attorney that could help write up an LLC for you. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.